This is going to be another movie review. This one's called Lolita, 1962. This is going to be another Stanley Kubrick flick. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was pretty decent. It's about the same as Doctor Strange Love, I guess, in terms of black humor, and it's got Peter Sellers. So Lolita is a 1962 black comedy psychological drama film directed by Stanley Kubrick based on the 1955 novel of the same name by Vladimir Nabokov. The black and white film follows a middle aged literature professor who develops an infatuation with an adolescent. We've got white slavery, Jeffrey Epstein theme going here. It stars James Mason as Humphrey, as Humbert, Humbert, Shelley Winters as Mrs. Hayes, Peter Sellers as Quilty, and Sue Lyon in her film debut as Dolores Lolita Hayes. The novel was considered unfilmable when Kubrick acquired the rights around the time of its U.S. publication, owing to restrictions imposed by the Hays Code, 1934 to 68. Kubrick and producer James B. Harris were compelled to tone down the pedophilic elements that were central to the novel's narrative. So I guess this movie kind of prophesied Jeffrey Epstein and and Eyes Wide Shut, which is an inferior movie, kind of backward prophesy the the Rothschild parties, I guess. Kind of interesting. Anyways, Sue Lyon was 14 years old at the time filming began, and she played a 13-year-old girl at the time of Humbert's seduction. And it starts out in the beginning with the end, which is kind of cool. I like that. I like the white slavery theme. I like I like James Mason as an actor. Adrian will back me up on this. He was good in that Stephen King television movie. I forget the name of it. James Mason. He's got that British accent, and it's I don't know. There's something about James Mason. I love the the temper tantrum from Lolita. Got some juvenile delinquency there, and her lack of a father figure is. She just completely goes berserk at James Mason. It was called Salem's Lot, a U.S. television miniseries that's like 3 hours long. Another great flick with James Mason. Humbert, a middle-aged British professor of French literature, arrives in Ramsdale, New Hampshire, intending to spend the summer before his professorship begins at Beardsley College, Ohio. He searches for a room to rent, and Charlotte Hayes, a sexually frustrated widow played by the great Shelley Winters, invites him to stay at her house. She's charging cheap rent just like that that deceased Jewish lady that I used to stay with in Outer Sunset. She's lonely. She wants him to stay at her house after declining. He sees her young daughter, Dolores, affectionately nicknamed Lolita, and she's in a bikini sucking on a lollipop. It's on the movie poster, and she's got the red heart-shaped sunglasses. Oh man, this movie is nuts. Only Stanley Kubrick can come up with this sort of movie. All right. Production companies: Seven Arts, Harris Kubrick Pictures, AA Productions Limited, Anya Pictures, Trans World Pictures, distributed by Metro Goldwyn Mayer, filmed in glorious black and white. Release date June 13th, 1962 in the United States. Running time 152 minutes. This is just like watching crazy people go at it. And I'm surprised at how James Mason is able to pull off the pseudo stepdad pedophile game for so long. I guess that's how Jeffrey Epstein got away with it. Anyways, language English, budget 1.5 million to 2 million, and a box office of 9.2 million. So this was pretty good box office success despite Catholic Legion of Decency going after Stanley Kubrick and censoring Stanley Kubrick. I think it's actually a better movie with the censorship in it. I guess Legion of Decency at one point, the priests were telling people to boycott certain movie theaters that showed movies that appealed to the prurient interest. But at this point, 1962, they were actually telling directors like Stanley Kubrick to cut out certain innuendo, such as, hey, little girl wants some candy. Infatuated with Dolores, Humbert accepts Charlotte's offer. He becomes a lodger in the Hayes household. He's got ulterior motives here, and so does Shelley Winters. However, Charlotte wants all of Humbert's time for herself and plans to send Dolores to an all-girls sleepaway camp for the summer. Not only that, she wants to send her daughter to boarding school. After the Hayes depart for camp, the maid gives Humbert a letter from Charlotte confessing her love for him and demanding that he vacate at once unless he feels the same way. The letter says that if Humbert is still in the house when she returns, Charlotte will know her love is requited and he must marry her. Despite laughing while reading the letter, Humbert marries Charlotte. Off camera, of course. I guess I missed that part. In Lolita's absence, Humbert becomes more withdrawn, and Charlotte grows increasingly unfulfilled and upset. Charlotte discovers Humbert's diary entries detailing his passion for Dolores and describing Charlotte as obnoxious and brainless. Distraught, she runs outside, but is hit by a car and dies. This is all coming down so fast, despite being such a long movie. There are so many twists and turns in this. And I even missed the part that they got married. And he really is, in fact, her stepdad. I thought he was just making that up, but according to Wikipedia, they got married. Humbert arrives to pick up Dolores from camp. She does not yet know that her mother has died. He lies to her and says she's in the hospital or something. They stay the night in a hotel that is handling an overflow influx of police officers attending a convention. How ironic is that? A pedophile, white slave or slave driver at, at a hotel that's hosting a police officers convention. What the irony is of this is just beyond beyond belief. And Peter Sellers is putting on quite a masterful show himself. Not as goofy and stupid as his fake Sieg Heil thing. I think at one point the underage blondie says below the age of consent. She says she calls her mother Shelley Winters Sieg Heil. Anyways, I think Stanley Kubrick has a thing for Sieg Heil. All right. One of the guests insinuates himself upon Humbert and keeps steering the conversation to his beautiful little daughter who is asleep upstairs. This is Peter Sellers again. The stranger implies that he too is a policeman. And he repeats that he thinks Humbert is normal. Humbert escapes the man's advances. The next morning, Humbert and Dolores play a game she learned at camp. It is implied that they have a sexual encounter. Off camera, of course. The next day, what game are they playing? Strip poker? The next day, Humbert confesses to Dolores that Charlotte is not sick in the hospital as he had probably previously said, but she is in fact dead. Grief-stricken, she stays with Humbert. Her loving stepdad. The two commence a trip cross country, traveling from hotel to motel. In public, they act as father and daughter. It's a very confusing relationship. And I haven't seen the remake, by the way, which is 1997. Anyways, in the fall, Humbert reports to his position at Beardsley College. Humbert enrolls Dolores in high school there. People begin to wonder about the relationship between the two. Yeah, I guess so. Humbert worries about her involvement with the school play and with male classmates. I guess if Humbert lets Lolita go out scantily clad, that would make me wonder too in 1962. This is right at the cusp of the sexual revolution, the Beatles, and all that nonsense. Okay. One night he returns home to find a stranger who calls himself Dr. Zempf. Peter Sellers impersonating a German guy, just like in Dr. Strangelove. Sitting in his darkened living room, Zempf claims to be the psychologist from Dolores' school, and he wants to discuss her knowledge of the facts of life. He convinces Humbert to allow Dolores to participate in the school play for which she had been selected to play the leading role. While attending a performance of the play, Humbert learns that Dolores has been lying about how she was spending her Saturday afternoons when she claimed to be at piano practice. They get into an argument, and Humbert decides to leave Beardsley College and take Dolores on the road again. Dolores objects at first, but then Dolores changes her mind, and Dolores seems enthusiastic. On the road, Humbert realizes that they are being followed by a car which never drops away. When Dolores becomes sick, he takes her to the hospital. However, when he returns to pick her up, she's gone. The nurse says that Dolores left with a man who claimed to be her uncle. Humbert is devastated. I guess he doesn't have as much parental control as he thought, and little wonder, because he's he's not imposing any kind of strict discipline on her. Which is what he should do as her stepdad. Years later, he receives a letter from Mrs. Richard T. Schiller, Dolores's married name. Dolores writes that she is now married to a man named Dick. The irony here is she married a Dick, and that she is pregos and in desperate need of money. Welfare! Humbert visits her and demands that she tell him who kidnapped her 3 years earlier. She says that it was Claire Quilty, the man who was following them, a famous playwright. He had a fling with Charlotte in Ramsdale. She states that Quilty is the only one who disguised himself as Dr. Zemp, the stranger who kept crossing their path. Dolores was infatuated with Quilty, and Dolores carried on an affair with him at Beardsley. Then Dolores left the hospital with Quilty when he promised her a Hollywood contract. However, he then demanded that she join the bohemian lifestyle, including acting in his art films, which she refused. This just keeps the plot thickens. Oh wait, there is no plot. Okay, Humbert begs Dolores to leave Schiller and come away with him. She refuses, as she has a baby due in 3 months. But Dolores apologizes for cheating. Humbert gives Dolores $13,000, which is quite a sum for 1962. I think you can buy a house with $13,000, explaining that it is her money from the sale of Charlotte's house. He then leaves to confront Quilty in his mansion. There, a drunk Quilty is shot dead by Humbert. And thus, the end of the movie is also the beginning of the movie. Because this is actually in chronological order, while the movie is not. I'm not spoiling the ending, I'm spoiling the beginning. Stanley Kubrick and James Harris acquired the rights to Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, a novel considered unfilmable several years after it was first published in September 1955 in Paris by Olympia Press, which specialized in pornographic literature. Initially considered a dirty book in an era when literary censorship meant jail time and fines for publishers, Lolita was not published in the United States until August 1958 by J.P. Putnam's Sons, after it had gradually established its literary reputation. So here we have a pornographic novel that became a literary genius type of work somehow. The theatrical advertisement from 1962 is on Wikipedia. It's got a great color movie poster of that that initial bikini scene where Shelley Winters says, "Oh, by the way, this is my daughter. she's she's sunbathing or something." Oh, this movie is nuts. Anyways, I thought it was too long, but the acting was pretty decent. Shelley Winters can start to get on your nerves. It's like nails on a chalkboard sometimes. But, but I think that's why Stanley Kubrick hired her. I'm not saying she's a terrible actress. I'm just saying that she's kind of typecast for these roles, if you know what I mean. Mama's gonna bake her baby some shortbread, shortbread. Oh man, I'm starting to have flashbacks of some of Shirley Winter's other movies. Okay, Stanley Kubrick. Let's see. When Marlon Brando fired Kubrick from One-Eyed Jacks in November 1958, the director issued a press release saying he was resigning from Brando's picture with deep regret so that he could commence work on Lolita. Kubrick was hired by Kirk Douglas to replace director Anthony Mann on the epic Spartacus, another great Kubrick film. So the top 6 Kubrick films are Spartacus, The Killing, A Clockwork Orange, Paths of Glory, then there's Full Metal Jacket, and what's the other one? I guess there are only 5. Those are my top 5. Okay, so Kubrick and Harris did not put Lolita into production until 1960. Kubrick directed Laurence Olivier and Peter Ustinov in Spartacus, both of whom he considered for roles in Lolita in his Lolita adaptation. It was filmed in part in Great Britain and in Albany, New York. With Nabokov's consent, Kubrick changed the order in which events unfolding by moving what was the first novel's ending to the start of the film. That was a great choice. Drunk Peter Sellers pretending like he doesn't know, or maybe too drunk to remember James Mason. Kubrick determined that while this sacrificed a great ending, it helped maintain interest, as he believed that interest in the novel sagged after Humbert seduced Lolita halfway through. While the novel was set in the 1940s, Kubrick gave it a contemporary setting, shooting many of the exterior scenes in England with some back projective scenery shot in the US, including upstate eastern New York along New York 9N. In the eastern Adirondacks, with a hilltop view of Albany from Rensselaer On the east bank of the Hudson, Kubrick had to film in England, as much of the money to finance the film was raised there, with the condition that it was also spent there. In addition, Kubrick had been living in England since 1961. Kubrick suffered from a deathly fear of flying. Uh, Hill, Hillfield Castle is featured in the film as Quilty's Paver Manor. Some of the minor parts were played by Canadian and US actors such as Sek Linder, Louise Maxwell, Jeff Stolen, and Diana Decker, who were based in England at the time. James Mason was the first choice of Kubrick and producer Harris for the role of Humbert, but he initially declined due to a Broadway engagement while recommending his daughter Portland for the role of Lolita. Laurence Olivier, who co-starred in Kubrick's Spartacus, was offered the part, but Olivier turned it down, apparently on the advice of his agents, who also represented Kubrick. Kubrick then considered Peter Ustinov, who won an Oscar for Spartacus, but Kubrick decided against him. Harris suggested David Niven, who accepted the part but withdrew for fear that the sponsors of his TV show, Four Star Playhouse, 1952, would object to the subject matter. Noel Coward and Rex Harrison were also considered. It would have been an interesting movie with David Niven or Rex Harrison, I think. But ultimately, James Mason was a good choice. Mason got the part of Humbert when he withdrew from the play. The role of Claire Quilty was greatly expanded from that in the novel. And Kubrick allowed Sellers to adopt a variety of disguises throughout the film. Early on in the film, Quilty appears as himself, a conceited avant-garde playwright with a superior manner. Later, he is an inquisitive policeman on the porch of the hotel where Humbert and Lolita are staying. Next, he is an intrusive Beardsley High School psychologist, Dr. Zempf. He persuades Humbert to give Lolita more freedom in her after-school activities. He is seen as a photographer backstage at Lolita's play. Later in the film, he is an anonymous phone caller conducting a survey. Jill Hayworth was asked to take the role of Lolita, but she was under contract to Otto Preminger, and he said no. Haley Mills was offered the role, but her parents refused permission. Joey Heatherton, Sandra Dee, and Tuesday Weld were potential candidates for the role. Too bad they didn't use what's her name? Mimsy Farmer. They should have used Mimsy Farmer. Let's see, she was born in 1945, so in 62, she would have been too old for this role. Oh, she would have been 17. Okay. Her first film was Gidget Goes Hawaiian in 61. At the age of 16, Mimsy Farmer. She would have been an interesting choice. Although Nabokov originally thought that Sue Lyon was the right selection to play Lolita, years later Nabokov said that the ideal Lolita would have been Catherine Demongout, a French actress, but years younger than Lyon. So we're talking like 10-year-old? Producer James Harris explained that 14-year-old Sue Lyon was cast because we knew we must make Lolita a sex object where everyone in the audience could understand why everyone would want to jump on her. Commentary from the time complained that Lyon was matronly at the age of 17. He also said in a 2015 film comment interview, we made sure when we cast her that she was a definite sex object, not something that could be interpreted as being perverted. Hans said that he and Kubrick, though, through casting, changed Nabokov's book as we wanted it to come off as a love story and to feel very sympathetic with Humbert. I don't feel sympathetic with him at all. I don't know what they're talking about. I guess they're trying to say there's some kind of plot involved in this. Nice try. At the time the film was released, the rating system was not in effect, and the Hays Code, dating back to the 1930s, governed film production. The censorship of the time inhibited Kubrick's direction. Kubrick later commented that because of all the pressure over the production code and the Catholic Legion of Decency at the time, I believe I didn't sufficiently dramatize the erotic aspect of Humbert's relationship with Lolita. If I could do the film over again, I would have stressed the erotic component of their relationship with the same weight Nabokov did. Kubrick hinted at the nature of their relationship indirectly through double entendre and visual cues such as Humbert painting Lolita's toes. So, like I said, this is a better movie with the censorship, sort of like Double Indemnity when she's smoking a cigarette on the couch. You know that they just had sex. You can just imagine it in your head. Kubrick hinted at the. Oh, here we go. In its 1972 Newsweek interview, after the rating system had been introduced in late 1968, Kubrick said that he probably wouldn't have made the film had he realized in advance how difficult the censorship problems would be. So I don't know if this is Catholic Legion of Decency directly getting involved with the screenwrite, the script, or maybe they're just the pressure of movie theater boycotts sort of indirectly affected the script. I'm not sure. It's unclear here. So I could be wrong with my initial statement that they were directly involved. It doesn't seem like it, but it's hard to tell because it's kind of vague here. Lolita kisses Humbert goodnight as he plays chess with her mother. His line in the scene is, "I take your queen." Chess, a recurring motif in Nabokov's novels, was also a favorite pastime of director Stanley Kubrick. The film is deliberately vague over Lolita's age, Kubrick commented. I think that some people had the mental picture of a 9-year-old, but Lolita was 12 and a half in the book. Sue Lyon was 13. Lyon was 14 by the time filming started and 15 when it finished. Although passed without cuts, Lolita was rated X by the British Board of Film Censors when released in 1962, meaning no one under the 16 years of age was permitted to watch. Humbert uses the term nymphet to describe Lolita, which he explains and uses in the novel. It appears twice in the film, and its meaning is left undefined. In a voiceover on the morning after the Ramsdale High School dance, Humbert confides in his diary, What drives me insane is the twofold nature of this nymphet, of every nymphet, perhaps this mixture in my Lolita of tender, dreaming childlessness and a kind of eerie vulgarity. I know it is madness to keep this journal, but it gives me a strange thrill to do so, and only a loving wife could decipher my microscopic script. The screenplay is credited to Nabokov, although very little of what he provided, later published in shortened version, was used in the film itself. Nabokov, following the success of the novel, moved out of Hollywood and penned a script for a film adaptation between March and September 1960. The first draft was extremely long, over 400 pages. As producer Harris remarked, you couldn't make it. You couldn't you couldn't lift it. Nabokov remained polite about the film in public, but in a 1962 interview before seeing the film, commented that it may turn out to be the swerves of a scenic drive as perceived by the horizontal passenger of an ambulance. And then you've got the original trailer for Lolita. The music for the film was composed by Nelson Riddle and Bob Harris. The main theme was solely by Bob Harris and performed by Riddle's orchestra. The recurring dance number, first heard on the radio when Humbert meets Lolita in the garden later, became a hit single under the name Lolita Ya Ya, with Sue Lyon credited with singing on the single version. The flip side was a 60s style light rock song called Turn Off the Moon, penned by Harris and Al Stillman, and also sung by Sue Lyon. There is also a version released as a single credited to Nelson Riddle on the B side of his Route 66 theme, capital 4741. Lolita Ya Ya was later recorded by other bands. It was also a 1962 hit single for the Ventures, reaching 61 on the Billboard Hot 100. A review in Billboard stated, there have been a number of versions of the title tune from the hit film Lolita, but this figures the strongest to date. The usual Ventures guitar sound is neatly augmented with voices. Lolita premiered on June 13, 1962 in New York City. The copyright date on screen is 1961. It performed fairly well with little advertising, relying mostly on word of mouth. Many critics seemed uninterested or dismissive of the film, while others gave it glowing reviews. However, the film was very controversial due to the hebephilia related content. The Observer called it the Lolita fiasco. Among the positive reviews, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times wrote that the film was conspicuously different from the novel and had some strange confusions of style and mood, but nevertheless had a rare power, a garbled but often moving push toward an offbeat communication. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Richard L. Coe of the Washington Post called it a peculiarly brilliant film with a tone not of hatred but of mocking true. Director and author had a viewpoint on modern life that is not flattering, but it is not despising either. It is regret for the human comedy. Philip K. Schuer of the Los Angeles Times declared that the film manages to hit peaks of comedy shrilly dissonant, but on an adult level that are rare. Indeed, at the same time, to underline the tragedy in human communication, human communion between people who've got their signals hopelessly crossed. The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote that the primary themes of the film were obsession and incongruity. And since Kubrick was an intellectual director with little feeling for erotic tension, one is the more readily disposed to accept Kubrick's alternative approach as legitimate. In a generally positive review for the New York Times, Brendan Gill wrote that Kubrick is wonderfully self confident, his camera having conveyed to us within the first 5 minutes that it can perform any wonders its master may require of it. He proceeds to offer us a succession of scenes broadly sketched and broadly acted for laughs, and laugh we do, no matter how morbid the circumstances. Arlene Croce in Sight and Sound wrote that Lolita is, in its way, a good film. She found Nabokov's screenplay a model of adoption and the cast near perfect, although she described Kubrick's attempts at eroticism as perfunctory and misguided, and thought his gifts for visual comedy is as faint as his depiction of sensuality. Of Variety had a mixed assessment, calling the film occasionally amusing but shapeless, and likening it to being a bee from which the stinger has been removed. It still buzzes with a sort of promising irreverence, but it lacks the power to shock and eventually makes little point either as comedy or satire. Harrison's reports was negative, writing, "You don't have to be an emulating prissy-ish uncle from Dubuque to say that the film leaves you with a feeling that is repulsively disgusting in much of its telling," adding that even if the exhibitor makes $1 in the booking, he may feel a sense of shame as he plods his weary way down to the bank. Stanley Kaufman of the New Republic called Lolita tantalizingly unsatisfactory. Film critic Pauline Kael acknowledged that the film was not consistently good, but what made it worth watching was how delightful it was, a new take on a comedic chase. The film has been reappraised by critics over the time, currently has a score of a whopping 89% on review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes based on 46 reviews with an average rating of 7.9 out of 10. I'm sort of in the ballpark. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. The critical consensus reads, Kubrick's Lolita adapts the seemingly unadaptable source material with a sly comedic touch and a sterling performance by James Mason that transforms the controversial novel into something refreshingly new without sacrificing its essential edge. I tend to agree with that assessment. Metacritic gives the film a score of 79 out of 100 based on reviews by 14 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Filmmaker David Lynch has said that Lolita is his favorite Kubrick film. Sofia Coppola has also cited Lolita as one of her favorite films, as has Paul Thomas Anderson. The film was a commercial success, produced on a budget of around $2 million. Lolita grossed $9.25 million domestically. During its initial run, the film earned an estimated $4.5 million in North American rentals. Years after the film's release, it has been re-released on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, and Blu-ray. I paid $3.99 to watch it on YouTube, which kind of irritates me. Peter Sellers was a little bit crazy, according to Tom Baker, 4586. This is the Doctor Who Tom Baker. Keanu says, I love this movie. Well, it's certainly not a bad movie or the best Kubrick movie, but it's sort of a top tier, top 10 maybe. That's how I would assess it. Academy Awards Best Screenplay based on material from another medium. Vladimir Nabokov nominated. British Academy Film Awards Best British Actor James Mason nominated. Directors Guild of America Awards Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Motion Pictures Stanley Kubrick nominated. Golden Globe Awards Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama James Mason nominated. Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama Shelley Winters nominated. Best Supporting Actor Motion Picture Peter Sellers nominated. I think I like Peter Sellers in this movie, I will say, better than I do in in Doctor Strangelove, where he's doing the secret. When he's doing that nonsense. Okay. Best Director Motion Picture Stanley Kubrick nominated. Most Promising Newcomer Female Sue Lyon won the Golden Globe Awards. That's pretty impressive for a 15-year-old. Okay. Saturn Awards 2011 Best DVD Collection, Lolita, as part of Stanley Kubrick, The Essential Collection, won. Another Saturn Awards from 2014 Best DVD or Blu-ray Collection, Lolita, as part of Stanley Kubrick, The Masterpiece Collection, nominated. Venice International Film Festival, Golden Lion, Stanley Kubrick, nominated. A 2020 article by journalist Sarah Weinman alleges that Harris, the producer of the film, had sex with Lion during the shooting of the film when she was 14 years old. So we've got Harvey Weinstein, the precursor to Harvey Weinstein is this James B. Harris was the Harvey Weinstein of the 1960s. I guess art imitates life here. Although Lyon had remained silent regarding the rumors for many years, when asked for a statement on the planned remake of the film in 1996, she had stated, "My destruction as a person dates from that film. Lolita exposed me to temptations no girl of that age should undergo. I defy any pretty girl who is rocketed to stardom at 14 in a sex and infant role to stay on a level path thereafter." Well, Mimsy Farmer didn't stay on a level path thereafter. I think she ended up being a sculptor or something. Anyways, the scene where Lolita first seduces Humbert as he lies on the cot is approximately 10 seconds longer in the British and Australian cut of the film. In the US edition, the shot fades as she whispers the details of the game she played with Charlie at camp. I can only guess it was strip poker. I have no idea. I was just taking a wild guess. In the UK Australian print, the shot continues as Humbert mumbles that he is not familiar with the game. She then bends down again to whisper more details. Kubrick then cuts to a closer shot of Lolita's face as she says, "Well, alrighty then," and then fades as she begins to descend onto Humbert on the cot. The later cut of the film was used for the Region 1 DVD release. It is also the version aired on Turner Classic Films in the US. The Criterion Laserdisc release is the only one to use the transfer approved by Stanley Kubrick. This transfer alternates between a 1.33 and and a 1.66 aspect ratio, as does Kubrick approve Strangelove transfer. All subsequent releases to date have been 1.66, which means that all the 1.33 shots are slightly matted. Lolita was filmed again in 1997, which I have not seen. Directed by Adrian Lyne, starring Jeremy Irons as Humbert, Melanie Griffith as Charlotte, and Dominic Swan as Lolita. The film was widely publicized as being more faithful to Nabokov than the Kubrick film, although many observed this was the case, such as Erica Jong, writing in the New York Observer. The film was not as well received as Kubrick's version and was a major box office bomb, first shown on the Showtime cable network, then released theatrically, grossing only $1 million at the US box office based on a $61 million budget. So, so the remake made less than the original. And I'm not even talking in inflation adjusted dollars. That's pretty sad. No wonder I haven't seen the remake. It's pretty obscure, actually. Okay, here we go. Lolita, 1962, 2 hours, 33 minutes. Why does James Mason films have to go 2, 3 hours? I mean, it was just. it, it was the same with Salem's Lot. That's a movie that I keep forgetting. Salem's Lot was like 3 hours. Okay. Pretty cool looking. Pretty cool looking trailer. Shelley Winters, Peter Sellers as Quilty. I don't know who's better in this. And her character dies off in the middle of the film anyway. I'm not sure who's better, Peter Sellers or James Mason. They're both great in this movie. Okay, it gets a whopping 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 114,000 ratings. In terms of popularity, it's ranked 2,273 on IMDb, down 257. Here's a similar review from Dant Brooks on IMDb. Dan Brooks, Kubrick's version of Nabokov's tale of a middle-aged professor's self-destructive obsession with a young schoolgirl, making a film that dealt with underage sex, was considered impossible in 1962. Due to the strict censorship regulations, Kubrick manages to get around this by merely alluding to sexual encounters, and subtle wordplay and symbolism creeps into several scenes. He also raises the girl's age from 12 in the novel to 14 in the film, which I guess is legal age of consent in Mississippi. Lolita is also rich in Kubrick's trademark dark humor. We like Kubrick dark humor on this channel. The three central characters of the novel are all portrayed more than adequately in the film. James Mason as a smitten professor, Shelley Winters as a suburban widow with pretensions of culture. Shelley Winters hamming it up as like nails on a chalkboard. And I'm not saying that she's a bad actress. It's just that she really knows how to make you cringe. Sue Lyons as the young nymphet. However, it is Sellers' performance as the creepy, eccentric Claire Quilty, a relatively minor character in the book, that steals the show and ultimately makes the film. Quilty, the opening scene, which is the ending of the film, is an outstanding testament to his talent and versatility. He's drunk playing ping pong with James Mason, who's less than enthusiastic about playing pong with the drunk, and all these empty liquor glasses on the ping pong table. The sad scene gives the film the same circular structure used in David Lean in Brief Encounter. My favorite moments include Quilty's reintroduction to the film at the school's summer ball as the camera pans across the dance floor and subtly reviews a look of comic ambivalence on his face as he dances with his lover. Humbert awkwardly tried to book the only remaining hotel room at the police convention, and Humbert again trying to teach the cynical Lolita the joys of Edgar Allan Poe's poetry. It's like stepdad and the shanty tramp have different interests, and they're never going to get along in life, basically. I thoroughly recommend this film. My only complaint is the length. The final third seemed to drag a bit. Okay. I don't have a complaint with the length. I just think, I don't know. It wasn't. It wasn't all that wonderful a movie that it just didn't strike me as being perfect as those other five films I mentioned: Spartacus, The Killing, Clockwork Orange, Paths of Glory, and Full Metal Jacket. Those are my top. The remake, Barry Lyndon, and The Killing. We did not like Barry Lyndon. That is not a good Kubrick film. Humbert faces a confrontation with a man whose name he has just recently learned in this man's home. The events that led to this standoff began 4 years earlier. Middle-aged Humbert, a European, arrives in the United States where he has secured a job at Beardsley College in Beardsley, Ohio, as the professor of French literature. Before he begins his post in the fall, he decides to spend the summer in the resort town of Randale, New Hampshire. He is given the name Hayes as someone who is renting a room in her home for the summer. He finds that Charlotte, widowed now for 7 years, is a woman who puts on airs. Among the demonstration of those airs is throwing around the name of Claire Quilty, a television and stage scriptwriter who came to speak at her women's club meeting and who she implies is now a friend. Those airs also mask being lonely, especially as she is a sexually aggressive and liberated woman. Oui. Humbert considers Charlotte a proverbial joke, but decides to rent the room upon meeting Charlotte's provocative daughter, Dolores Hayes, more frequently referred to as Lolita, who he first spots in a bikini tanning in the backyard. He is immediately infatuated with Lolita. You should see the expression on James Mason's face when Shelley Winter says, "Oh, by the way, here's my half naked teenage daughter," who he first spots in a bikini tanning in the backyard. Lolita. He's immediately infatuated with Lolita. Lolita. Yeah, I guess so. That's the whole point of her tanning in the backyard, with who he becomes obsessed in a sexual manner despite her age, she just being in her teens. That doesn't age is just a number to these Jeffrey Epstein types, Harvey Weinstein, and the other guy I mentioned. He will also learn that Charlotte has the exact same feelings for him, or at least so it seems. But she loves the total effing weirdo, Peter Sellers, even more. While Charlotte does whatever she can to be alone with Humbert, Humbert does the same with Lolita. As the summer progresses, Humbert, based on the circumstances, decides to enter in a relationship with Charlotte just to be near Lolita. In that new arrangement, Humbert has to figure out how to achieve his goal of being with Lolita with Charlotte out of the way. As things begin to go Humbert's way, he is unaware that Charlotte is not the only thing standing in his way between him and Lolita, the other thing being Lolita's possible interest in other boys and other members of the male sex, young or old, who may have their own designs on Lolita. That is a storyline by Hugo on IMDb. Taglines for persons over 18 years of age. I thought it was 16 in the UK. Peter Sellers modeled the voice of his character, Claire Quilty, on that of his director, Stanley Kubrick. Director Stanley Kubrick walks out of the very first interior shot, center to right bottom of Humbert entering Quilty's house. Charlotte Hayes is quoted as saying, "Do you believe in God?" And me. The credits are played over footage of Lolita's toenails being painted. The scene where Lolita first seduces Humbert as he lies in a cot is a good 10 seconds longer in the British cut of the film. The game she played with Charlie at camp. In the UK print, the shot continues as Humbert mumbles that he's not familiar with the game. She then bends down again to whisper more details. Kubrick then cuts to a closer shot of Lolita's head as she says, "Well, alrighty then," and then fades as she begins to descend on to Humbert on the cot. The British cut of the film was used for the Region 1 DVD release. This was edited into Hal Kubrick, or is it High Kubrick, 1999? I guess it's High Kubrick. Pardon me. The theme from Lolita by Bob Harris is orchestrated by Gil Grau. And there we go. Release date June 21st, 1962 in West Germany. Countries of origin UK and the United States. Languages English, French, Spanish, German, also known as something in Russian that I can't read. Filming locations: Albany, New York, USA. Production companies: AA Productions, Anya and Trans World Pictures. Budget of 2 million. Gross worldwide of $7,411. I think that's a typo. I think it's closer to 9 or 10 million. Runtime: 2 hours 33 minutes, 153 minutes. Inglorious black and white. Aspect ratio 1.66 to 1. But there's some added 1.33 as we mentioned before. And I'm up over an hour. It's time for me to cook some chow mein, take a little nappy poo, update my movie list. Speaking of my movie list, number one on the list is Defeating the Devil. Exorcists Tell Their Story, 2014. Then we've got Treasure of Monte Cristo, number two on my list, 1949. Number three is Filmworker, 2018. So those are the next three coming down the pike. Thanks for sticking with me. Good to see you in the chat room, Tom Baker 4586 and Karanu. Thanks for hanging out, staying to the very end. At least one of you did. Laters.